Tucked away in silent archives of forests, ancient buildings, and sunken ships, there lies a history of human endeavor, written not in ink, but in the grain of the wood itself. These are epic stories of prosperous empires and devastating famines, of bustling trade routes and the quiet march of daily life. For centuries, these wooden chronicles remained unread, their language a mystery. Today, thanks to the remarkable science of dendrochronology, we can finally read these stories and reconstruct the economic booms and busts of our ancestors with astonishing precision. Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Trees are meticulous record keepers. Each year, they add a new layer of growth just beneath their bark, forming the familiar rings you see on a stump. But this annual ring is more than just a marker of age. It's a detailed diary. In years blessed with ample sunlight and rain, the ring is wide and healthy. In times of drought, cold, or stress, the ring is narrow and constricted. The life of a tree is a yearly cycle. In the spring and early summer, it produces large, thin-walled cells, creating a light-colored band we call early wood. As the growing season winds down in late summer and fall, the cells become smaller and thicker-walled, forming a darker band called late wood. A single light ring and a single dark ring together represent 1 year of the tree's life. So by counting the rings, we can determine a tree's age. Simple enough. But the true power of dendrochronology comes from a technique called cross-dating. This is where it gets really clever. Scientists don't just count the rings. They measure the unique pattern of wide and narrow rings. This pattern is a direct reflection of the year-to-year climate fluctuations in a specific area. Think of it like a barcode. Trees that grew in the same region at the same time will share this distinctive barcode pattern. By overlapping the ring patterns from living trees with those from older, dead trees, perhaps found preserved in peat bogs or as timbers in historic buildings, researchers can build continuous, unbroken timelines called master chronologies. These master chronologies can stretch back hundreds, and in some cases, thousands of years. They serve as a definitive calendar against which any piece of wood from that region can be compared and dated to the exact year, and sometimes even the season, it was felled. But how do we get from a climate diary to a detailed economic report? The connection lies in understanding what drove the economies of our pre-industrial ancestors. Before the age of global supply chains and industrial agriculture, economies were overwhelmingly local and agrarian. The wealth of a kingdom or the survival of a village depended directly on the success of its harvests. Tree rings give us a direct proxy for this vital economic engine. By reconstructing past climate conditions like rainfall and temperature, scientists can infer agricultural productivity. A sequence of wide rings points to years of favorable weather, suggesting bountiful harvests, population growth, and economic surplus. In other words, an economic boom. Conversely, a series of narrow rings can indicate a prolonged drought, a primary trigger for crop failure, famine, social unrest, and an economic bust. But there's an even more direct link. One of the most powerful applications of dendrochronology to economic history comes from analyzing construction timbers. A groundbreaking 2022 study compiled the felling dates from an astounding 54,000 pieces of historical timber from across Europe, dating from the year 1250 to 1699. The logic here is simple yet profound. Large-scale construction is a sign of economic prosperity. When times are good, societies have the surplus capital, labor, and confidence to invest in new homes, churches, and public buildings. A surge in the number of trees felled for construction in a particular period is a clear signal of an economic boom. A sudden drop in building activity, however, points to a crisis, like a war, a plague, or an economic collapse, when resources are scarce and the future is uncertain. This method allows historians to track macroeconomic development on a vast scale, completely independent of written records, which can often be sparse or biased. Furthermore, because wood was the backbone of the pre-industrial world, essential for everything from shipbuilding and construction to fuel and tools, we can trace its movement. By analyzing a timber's tree ring fingerprint, we can match it to the master chronology of its source forest. This technique, known as dendrochronology, uncovers the vast and complex trade networks of the past. It reveals the immense economic and logistical efforts required to transport this crucial commodity over hundreds or even thousands of miles. So let's look at some of the incredible stories this science has uncovered. The 2022 study of European building timbers provided a high-resolution economic history of the continent, confirming and clarifying major historical events. The data clearly shows a peak in construction during the economic prosperity of the late 13th century. This was a time of growth and stability in much of Europe. The tree rings show a decline during the late medieval crisis, a period of famine and instability. But perhaps most dramatically, the data reveals an unprecedented collapse in building activity across much of Europe during the devastating 30 Years' War, from 1618 to 1648. This conflict killed a significant portion of the German population. The tree ring data acts as an independent economic ledger, showing an almost complete halt to construction in the region. It paints a more nuanced picture than written sources alone, showing exactly when and where the economic devastation hit hardest. Let's go further back, to the Roman Empire. The saying "wood has 1,000 uses, and without it, life would not be possible" was never truer than in ancient Rome. Analysis of timbers from a lavishly decorated portico in the center of the city revealed a story of incredible economic integration. The oak planks, felled between 40 and 60 CE, did not come from the depleted woodlands surrounding Rome. Instead, their tree ring patterns matched chronologies from the Jura Mountains of northeastern France, over 1,000 kilometers away. This single discovery proves that the Roman Empire had a highly organized, sophisticated, long-distance timber trade. They were transporting high-quality construction wood down the Saône and Rhône rivers, and then shipping it across the Mediterranean Sea just to fuel the monumental building projects of the capital. Such an undertaking speaks to a robust and integrated economy, capable of coordinating immense logistical challenges. Now let's jump forward to the Age of Sail. Shipwrecks from this era of exploration and trade serve as time capsules of economic ambition. Dendrochronologists analyzed the timbers from the Batavia, a famous Dutch East India Company ship that sank off the coast of Australia in 1629. The analysis revealed the secrets of Dutch maritime dominance. The oak used for its hull was sourced from two distinct regions. The timber for parts of the ship above the waterline came from near Lübeck, in Germany. But for the planks below the waterline, they used prized, fine-grained wood from the Baltic region. This strategic sourcing of materials points to an efficient and highly organized shipbuilding industry. This industry was the engine of the Netherlands' success in global trade, and the trees tell us exactly how they did it. By dating the timbers of numerous shipwrecks, historians can reconstruct shipbuilding cycles, which often correlate with broader economic trends of expansion and contraction. But trees don't just record booms. They are silent witnesses to the catastrophic events that can bring a civilization to its knees. In the American Southwest, the abandonment of the magnificent cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde in the late 1200s long puzzled archaeologists. Dendrochronology provided the key. Studies revealed a period of prolonged and severe drought that coincided precisely with the Exodus. This great drought would have crippled the maize-based agriculture the ancestral Pueblo people depended on, leading to resource scarcity and societal collapse. It wasn't war or disease that emptied the city, it was the climate, and the trees recorded it all. Similarly, archaeologists studying the decline of the great pre-Columbian city of Cahokia, near modern-day St. Louis, found that tree rings from the region showed a dramatic narrowing around the year 1150. This indicated the onset of significant droughts that would have devastated the corn harvests needed to feed its large population. This climate-induced crisis is now believed to have been a major factor in the city's eventual collapse. Across the globe, from the fall of the Mayan civilization to famines in ancient China, tree ring evidence repeatedly links severe climate downturns to periods of profound economic and social crisis. Of course, while dendrochronology is a revolutionary tool, it's not without its challenges. The science was born and has been most extensively applied in the temperate zones of the Northern Hemisphere, where distinct growing seasons produce clear, easily readable rings. In the tropics, where seasonal variations can be less pronounced, identifying annual rings is more challenging. However, pioneering research is expanding the reach of dendrochronology across the globe. In Africa, South America, and Asia, scientists are now successfully developing chronologies from various tree species. These studies are beginning to reconstruct historical rainfall patterns, investigate the impact of monsoons, and understand how climate has affected societies for centuries, laying the groundwork for a truly global economic history written in wood. There are other challenges too. Not all tree species are suitable, and a sample must typically have at least 30 intact rings for an accurate match. The wood must be well preserved, which is why timbers from arid environments, peat bogs, or waterlogged archaeological sites are so valuable. And interpretation is key. Dendrochronology gives a precise felling date for a tree. This is not always the same as the construction date of a building. Timber could be stored for years before use, or even reused from older structures. That's why historians must combine tree ring data with other archaeological and documentary evidence to build the complete picture. Before spreadsheets and economic reports, the trees were keeping score. Their rings are an unwritten ledger of droughts and plentiful rains, of building booms and societal collapses. They offer an independent, biological record that can verify, challenge, and enrich the historical narratives we've built from human documents. Dendrochronology allows us to listen to these silent witnesses, revealing a history of our world that is deeply and inextricably intertwined with the natural environment. In the grain of a forgotten timber or the heart of an ancient tree, we find a new, profound way to read the enduring story of human prosperity and peril.